Dad taught me a lot of things, as most of the fathers have done for us all. And growing up and all of the childhood experiences we had, I would change nothing. He was very accommodating, very understanding. Anybody was at our graduation party in 1980, it lasted 2 days. You could see how accommodating he was. That was an unplanned event, and I didn't tell him anything about it. We really never talked about it. And a couple days later, he came up to me and said, "You know, I got some coffee at 6 o'clock in the morning, and there's a football game going on in the driveway." This is at 6 a.m. the next day after our graduating night. And he said, "All the neighbors are watching. You guys have a lot of entertainment going on." So he was very accommodating with that stuff. A couple of things that I learned from him. He taught me this art about closing the deal, which is all part of his real estate business and what he did. And that was what his real interest was always being able to put one party to go with another party. And those that are in the real estate business obviously understand that. I remember this one day, I'm washing a car, and he's trying to sell a house down the street. And he comes down and says, I need the hose. And he takes the water hose down to this house, and he had a deal going where the person selling the house didn't want to give up the water hose, and the person buying the house wanted the water hose. So he just bought a whole other water hose and closed that deal. Okay, that's the way to do it. Time goes on, and he's recognized that me and my friends have this fast boat fascination kind of going on around the lake. He decides to take us to the hydroplane races in the Tri-Cities. We were like 12 years old, something like that. So he takes us to the races, and we're having a great time. And we're running around out there, and I said, "Dad, I'll bet you $1 million one day I'll be driving one of these boats." He doesn't acknowledge it, just kind of shakes his head, kind of goes on. Whatever he was doing, I was just kind of bothering him at the moment. 20 years later comes along, and now I'm a qualified unlimited hydroplane driver. I invite him to come down to the race at Tri-Cities again, and now I'm out there driving these things. And later that night, I said, "Dad, you remember that time I said, I bet you $1 million I could be driving one of these things?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "Well, I think it's maybe time to pay up." He says, "Son, we never closed that deal. We never shook on that." He was right. Obviously, I wasn't making a serious deal. He was totally correct about it. Learned a lot about business from him that time. As time goes on and we're growing up, I'm going to tell you another story, and it's about hunting and fishing again. But in the young days, we were big into grouse hunting. When I was 11 years old or so, it was time to get my first shotgun. And we go to the gun store, and I'm like this, and I'm just excited as ever can be to get my first shotgun. And the guy selling the gun at the counter, he loads all those shells into that gun and pumps them all out, showing us how fast this thing, and I was totally amazed. I was enthralled. And at that time, I had basic gun safety training. But he buys this gun for me. He says, "Yeah, son, in a couple days, I'm going to take you out and teach you how to shoot this gun." Well, I got home from school the next day, and a couple days was just too much for me. And I opened that gun cabinet, and I got into that gun, and I was just going to put the shells and eject them out like the guy at the gun store did. And I load all those shells in that gun, and I'm in the front room. I'm looking at the ceiling, and I'm like, man, I should at least point the barrel out the door or something here in case something goes wrong. And at that time, I had thought that the guy was holding the trigger down while he's pumping all these shells into this thing. So I open up the sliding glass door to the room. It's raining like a mad dog outside. I just kind of point this thing out the door, and I start going at it, and that thing goes off. It fires all right, and it blows this giant hole in the deck. And I'm like, nobody's home. I'm like, what am I going to do now? How am I going to deal with this? And my dad trusted me, and obviously I let him down. And he is smarter than I was, obviously. So I manually unload this gun quickly, and I put it back, put everything back. And And I go out and I'm looking at this deck and I start gathering up the chunks of wood and I'm stuffing them all in this hole. Make it look like it kind of never happened. And it was like that for, I don't know, 15 or 20 years until we resurfaced the deck. And I'm confessing now, Dad, because I never told you. So, there's probably more confessions than that, but that is going to be the one I'm going to stick with. Second confession, and this one's part older brother Tony's fault. He was teaching me how to drive. And when you're 11 or 12 years old learning how to drive, that's just pretty cool. So when you come home alone again, and there's cars in the driveway and the keys hanging on the wall, it's time to go driving. So I take these and I drive around the neighborhood and I put them back and I started thinking, man, if somebody checks the miles on these things, I don't know how I'm going to cover this. Do you have to like drive them backwards the same amount you drive them? So I kind of quit doing that, but the greatest thing about that growing up period was by the time we hit driver's ed at 13, we were professional drivers. We'd already been driving for years. Another wonderful experience, Idaho, and your father helps get you around. He was, we're all going to agree to this, one of the most giving people in the world. He gave everything that everybody would really want that he could within reason. And he really kept that up to the end, all the way. And I'm talking to the very end. And in his checkbook, he was writing donation checks to everybody in his last week. It was just amazing that he was doing that. And he really didn't have the money to do it. He was still doing it. He makes giving stories or giving tales of all of my youth and all of my friends that I hear about. A lot of these things I didn't even know about. He doesn't do any of this giving for any kind of glory. He would do it silently. And that's just the kind of person he was. It's the kind of person we all want to be. He had few enemies, if any. I never really saw any of that. I'm sure he had some somewhere, but I just never saw them. And as a father, he gave me full support in everything I was doing and what I wanted to do. And of course, he wanted me to follow him in the real estate business, but I'll tell you what, he's got this landman real estate thing. He was the landman. He was all about selling land. Not really interested in the houses thing. Maybe the hose thing kind of blew that part for him. But he was more interested in land and crawling through the brush and the forest and the mud and finding these corners of all these property things. And he was just in his element doing that. And I'd go out there on the other side and say, Dad, can't find this corner. Oh, no, it's in here. And he's climbing through the brush and the swamp. And he's saying, son, you can have a whole career doing this. I mean, and to me, this looks like military boot camp. And I'm thinking, I don't want a whole career military boot camp. This is not something I'm interested in. And as a young person, we're all at that time trying to figure out what we're going to do in life, what our careers are going to be. And I didn't really know what my career was going to be. I just didn't really think I wanted to do boot camp for a whole career. So as I'm in junior class in high school, we're in careers class. And they're going down the line, everybody's telling me what career they're going to have. And I'm like 2 chairs away. I have no idea what I'm going to make up and tell them. Well, this helicopter flies by the window, and I'm thinking, I'll just use that one. So I said, I want to be in the helicopter business. Well, went home with this wacky idea and told my dad about it. Fully supportive. Helped me research, helped me with every part of it. Obviously, I went into it and did it, and I've been involved in it for over 42 years now. And it's been a wonderful vision that started, that went all the way through to the end, and he helped me with the business part of it, set me up with the bank here with my first loan. All of these pieces and parts that being a great father took, and that was him. He was the father that I want to be, that we all want to set our goals for ourselves. And we're all trying to do the same thing he accomplished with ease. I can tell you that, because it's a lot more difficult than it looks from the outside. I I thank my father for everything that I have, really. He's done everything and opened up every opportunity that's presented itself. He's been my hero, and I've looked up to him every day, and I've told everybody that if you have a father, you should call him every day, because it's a thing that one day that the phone is not gonna ring. So that time has come, and that's now. The phone no longer rings, but I continue on doing what I'm doing, and most of it that I learned from him, and I will carry that on. He was a hero to others too, and helped other kids go down. And my best friend Rick Adams is here. He was an adopted son. Why don't you come up here, Rick? He actually adopted some kids and give them a chance to go through school and be somebody in this world and help them. So why don't you go over here and tell about it? And why don't you tell them about all the liquor you sold out of the old man's liquor cabinet? How many bottles of liquor did you actually steal from my old man?
I think it was one. It extended across 6 months. Well, first of all, I'm just incredibly honored and privileged to be here with all of you who were obviously impacted by Dave so dramatically, as was I, and there are countless others here that were not as impacted. I do have to take Brian's, your remarks hit all of our hearts deeply. I'm sure there is one point, however, I think we need to just tidy up a little bit, this professional driving thing. As the guy who was the passenger for most of these professional drives, not so much. Not an F1 quality kind of driving experience. Anyway, just again, thank you so much. Brian asked me as we were talking about this to share my story. As I've said to many of you that I've had a chance to reconnect with, that everyone has them, and I'm not in any way proclaiming this to be any different, better, or worse than anyone else's, but it's somewhat unique, and he just asked me to share it, and so I said, you know, I met Dave when I was 11 years old. My family moved from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to Herron, Montana. That is a slight deviation from what it is that was happening in Harrisburg versus what it is that was happening in Herron, and I drove to Herron this morning to look where I used to live, and it's still Herron, Montana. It looks remarkably close to what it looked like when I was there. And there was a lot of things going on in our family, and some of them candidly were not great. And Dave, as Brian said, was someone who, his empathy, his generosity, he was keenly aware of everything that was going on. He extended an opportunity for my older brother Doug, to live with the family. And that is not something that happens. That is not something that he sold us the ranch that the family bought in Herron. And, you know, there can be a real estate, there can be a transactional element to that. Dave took that to a level that we could have never imagined as a family. And he took my brother in. My brother had the good fortune, thanks to Dave, and many of you that are here, actually, you know, Doug went on, and I'll be boastful of him, that he went on to the military academy, he went on to become a superintendent of schools. He himself is an educator. He took what he was given, what he learned, and he used that to educate lots and lots of people over 40 years. That never happens. It never happens without the generosity of what happened with Dave and the family. And so, you know, that is a pay it forward. And when you talk in life about, you know, the true measure is not necessarily what you may have done yourself, but what impact have you had on others? I can't think of anyone that has had a greater impact on others than Dave. And not only did he take in my older brother, he then decided, despite, I think Tony would agree, probably a lot of other shenanigans that went on at the cabin, as we called it. I think a few other names come to mind as I reflect back. The cabin probably wasn't the best name for it. And then he afforded me the same opportunity. And I was able to go to Clark Fork High School, and through that myself go on and had opportunities in a long career that included eventually working at the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee. I had the great privilege of serving Team USA as our, what the position's called the chef de mission at the Olympic Games in Tokyo and the Olympic Games in Beijing. And I can tell you, from a kid from Clark Fork, Idaho, to be able to walk into a stadium full of people with Team USA drapes all over us, that is a privilege and an honor that I could never in my wildest dreams imagined. And I say that, please, I say that humbly. I say that not because it's something that I had an opportunity to do. I say that because Dave set in motion a journey in life that allowed that to happen. And that just speaks to who he is as a person, who he is, just the generosity that he had. And the business acumen obviously goes without saying. But I just wanted to share briefly, because I know we have lots of folks in here who are going to have an opportunity to talk about it. But I love him. He changed the trajectory of my life, my family's life. I have tried to carry that forward and change other lives as best that I can. And that to me just, is emblematic of Dave as a human being. So I appreciate Tony and Brian the opportunity to speak and to share briefly that story, and anxious to hear everyone else's great stories of a great man and a great life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave was a great stepfather to me. He was more than a stepfather. He was my dad. And parents may get divorced, but kids don't. And the biggest blessings that Dave gave me was a brother. Yeah, I had a sister, but Brian and I truly grew up as brothers. And yeah, we did some things, and speed was kind of in both of our blood at the time, from driving a car to putting a 4 horsepower motor on a little 10-foot flat bottom rowboat. And it was pretty sketchy, but it was a good time. And a few things I'll say about Dave is, yes, he was generous. I really didn't want for a whole lot as a kid. But with that comes responsibility. And Dave would give you a lot of responsibility, but he would hold you accountable. And I will admit that, yeah, I did some things that I should have done, and I will say the punishment was generally always fair. And you paid for those mistakes. Be it financially, if you had to pay back a 4th of July hit and run, or whatever the case is. It's just, Dave gave you leeway, but if you did something you shouldn't have, well, he took care of it. And that was awesome. And Brian spoke of fishing. Yes, I will attest, fishing was big. I remember many opening season of stream fishing. And he'd drag me out of bed back when I was 10, 11, 12. Brian wasn't there then, luckily, I think. But we would go and we would traipse through the brush up Trestle Creek or Lightning Creek or wherever he chose, and go stream fishing, or we'd go to whatever Alpine Lake, or spend the day in the boat. And it was all good. And then when I got a brother, we all got to do it together. And that was pretty awesome. And that's kind of why I've got the festive shirt on, is because, yeah, it's a celebration. And 2 things that Dave loved was the islands and fishing. But it wouldn't really be good if I wore the type of shirt that Dave liked to wear fishing. It was always full of holes, about 20 years old. Yeah. And so instead of wearing something like that here, and it be misconstrued as, what's that up there? I went this route. But it's just really exciting. And then Brian hit on the phone calls. That's serious. You do need to call brothers, sisters, dads, moms. The thing that I will miss is Dave didn't miss a birthday. He would call, and if I wasn't on the phone, once there was answering machines, he would sing "Happy Birthday," complete, Tonio, "Happy Birthday, Tonio," and sing the whole thing, or voicemail. Even if he answered, he sang the whole thing. And we've got, between Sharon and I, between us, we've got quite a few grandkids. And he would go down the list and ask how everyone's doing. And it was sincere and honest. They even lived in India, some of them. And how are they doing over there? What do you hear from them? And Dave truly, truly, truly cares about people. And, you know, the driving part, what was interesting, and I guess it started with the fishing and even the real estate going through the brush. Dave had this propensity to love to find, like Brian said, the corners or a new fishing hole, a new beaver pond, a new whatever. And from the time I was about 10 or 11 years old, when we got off the highway, I drove, or later on Brian drove. And he would say, go down that road. Maybe there's something down there. And we'd get 2 or 3 miles into a logging road, and it would end. Or it would end by a cliff or whatever the case is. And he'd say, Tony, back it out. So here we were, up in the woods on a 4-wheel drive road. You gotta back this thing out 3 miles because there's no place to turn around. And so we got some great skills in backing. And by the time driver's ed came, I'd never tried to parallel park before. Aced it, just like that. Because we had some mean backup skills. And it was honest. Same thing with the boat. Dave would never dock the boat. Didn't matter if it was the houseboat or the Starcraft or whatever. You're 12 years old, 11 years old, dock the boat. So again, he gave us great responsibilities as kids. And you know, that's the neat thing. We as kids, when given great responsibility, we generally rise to the occasion. And Dave understood that. And that was another awesome thing. So the fishing, the love of fishing, the love of the outdoors, he basically put that in all of us. And for that, I'm truly, truly, truly grateful. But he was fair in punishment. Again, I get into that. And I'll tell some of you the story about what the punishment was if you got suspended from school for a day. But you'll have to meet me separate for that, because that was kind of a doozy. So, you know, it was awesome. But Dave, you're going to be missed. You did some awesome things for us kids. You were a good father to Brian and I, and my sister, to Doug and Rick. You truly were, and for that we're grateful. And I know for many of you out there, he was truly a man who has touched your life in some way. And we're going to give you a few minutes here to just come on up, and if there's a particular story that you would like to share about Dave, I just encourage you to go ahead and come up, and let's celebrate these memories together, because they're your memories that we'd love for you to share with the family, and just let us know. So don't be shy.
First, let's go. Someone has to be first.
Somebody has to raise their eyes.
My husband, well, first of all, I'm Robin Reynolds. I'm Brian's wife. He'll tell you that I can talk a lot, but public speaking is not really my thing, so I'll do my best. So, anyways, becoming Dave's daughter-in-law was definitely a gift. Anyways, many of you know that he would refer, as he'd walk into the room, Brian the Great. And so to be Brian the Great's wife was those were big shoes to fill. I'm sorry. Dave was amazing. I can tell you that Dave loved me. I know that Dave loved me, and I feel those entered that man's heart was through my cooking. He loved my cooking, which I don't think I'm a very good cook, so I think it's kind of funny, but I would prepare meals for him at my home when he traveled, and then I would prepare meals for him here in Idaho when we would freeze them. That's a whole other story. But the man had a freezer full of my food. And he loved it. And then he was always very good at emailing you. Hey Robin, tonight I had a quarter of that enchilada you made me. Hey Robin, I'm eating a quarter of that fish that you caught on July 19th. He knew it all. Or my chicken patty Robin that I made for him. He loved it. But yeah, I think I won him over maybe a few ways, but definitely through my cooking. Dave was also the most amazing grandparent. I made him wait a little long, and I didn't make him wait, but he had to wait a little while to have grandchildren. And started out with my daughter. She was the absolute apple of his eye. He would come to our house, and he would, whatever she wanted to do for all day long, he just needed a break to have a snack or a break to go potty, but other than that, that's all he would devote his entire day to her. And then later to his grandson Austin. And that was, grandparents don't do that. I mean, I'd never seen a grandparent do that. I thought it was great. And, that's the thing. When Allison was born, he officially became Papa Dave. Hey, it's Papa Dave, it's Papa Dave. It's like he was no longer Dave, he was now Papa Dave. And he was forever Papa Dave. When Allison, oh wait, I already said that part. It's okay. My late night notes. So I grew up in Washington. I lived there my entire life. I guess apparently thanks to Dave bringing Brian to a boat race, I was able to meet him, and the rest is kind of history. I don't think I knew that your dad brought you to your first boat race, so that's kind of good one. And so anyways, I'd been to every lake in Washington, but we hydroplane raced, we didn't fish. And I came to Idaho, and I'm like, man, fishing is fun. I'm like, this is great. But I didn't do anything. I just caught the fish and then I handed it off to Dave and Brian. Cause ew. And, sorry. And so one day they went and go fishing with me. And I'm like, well, I'm a visual learner. I can do this. So I got all this stuff out of the garage. I knew how to do this. Found some rubber gloves. And I went fishing. When I walked into the house, we'd always bring the fish in the house. Walked into the house and had a basket full of fish, and Dave and Brian were like, how did you do that? I'm like, and people laughed at me. They laughed at me, but I still to this day fish in gloves, and I love fishing. I love fishing in Idaho, and I will thank Dave for that. And he might have laughed at me, but he didn't laugh when I filled his freezer. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm just gonna say kind of what you guys said. Dave was the most generous person I have ever met. And I've tried, and I will continue to try to be like Dave and to be generous, but in the silent way, the sneaky, secretive way of just, caring for people and just being a good person. But we will miss him so much. There was just nobody quite like him. Right? Sorry, I cried.
Hello. A lot of people here. My name is Allison. I am Papa Dave's granddaughter. I wasn't emotional, but my mom made me
Okay.
my Papa Dave probably one of the biggest influences on me as a person, aside from my parents. His love and dedication to Idaho, to Hope, and Lake Pend Oreille was infectious. While his identity in Idaho doesn't capture his entire life as a whole, it encapsulates everything he is to me. As Papa Dave and this beautiful place have been deeply interweaved together since I was born. I've spent every summer of my life here, and when I was young, while I did have a ton of fun, it wasn't until I was older that I realized how much Papa Dave, his graciousness in sharing his beautiful home and his love for the lake impacted me. Him and my dad taught me how to fish here, how to go on nature walks, and learn about and appreciate the beauty around me. I got great at swimming, diving, searching for sparkly rocks on the lake floor. It wasn't until I was much older when I encountered friends that didn't know how to swim and were scared to touch a fish, that I realized how deeply proud I am to know my Papa Dave and to have been taught so much by him. I mean, my amazing boyfriend of 5 years, he started coming over to Idaho with us, and he caught his first fish, but then we wanted him to hold it to take a picture, and he held it with a towel, and he kind of held it like really far away. And I was like, I don't hold a million fish, but it's just a fish. But it's just crazy when you meet other people. He taught us how to have a deep appreciation of a quiet, remote place, bold sunsets, slowing down, a natural love for water, for animals. These are things that are deeply ingrained in who I am because of Papa Dave and his choice to settle down here and share it with his family. But enough about Idaho. Here's some more about Papa Dave himself. As I grew up and I graduated college and I got a job, my time in Idaho got shorter every year, much to my disappointment and to the detriment of my inner peace. But I had an amazing childhood with Papa Dave before all of that. He was one of, if not the best grandparent I had. I can illustrate that with just one thing about him. Video games are a huge part of my life. They always have been. They mean a lot to me, and I look back on all my hours of gaming as a child so fondly. Many people today have a lot of opinions about how much screen time children should have, but growing up with computer games and gaming consoles made me the happiest child alive, and I still continue that hobby today. However, it's hard to play video games with your grandparents. Not to mention that I played a lot of single-player games, and Papa Dave stayed at our house a lot when I was young. He was there for all the holidays, for lots of extended stays, so he was at our house a lot to spend time with us. You would think my parents would bar me from the video games and command me to spend quality time with my grandpa. That's what you probably imagine. But they didn't. My parents have always allowed me to make my own choices. Now, of course, Papa Dave and I went on walks, and we played card games and with stuffed animals. But when I wanted to go back to computer games, he just came with me. He would pull up another computer chair in our nice little computer room, grab his instant coffee, and just sit with me for hours. And this went on for years. From the earliest days of Blue's Clues birthday party to the later years of Zoo Tycoon, he hung out with me no matter what I wanted to do, even if that was just sit my butt in a computer chair in the computer room. I didn't get to do that with any of my other grandparents, and I don't really know anyone else whose grandparents did the same with them. The amount of patience and love that takes, I can't even describe. I didn't even realize it as a child. Now that I'm an adult, I can promise you I do not want to spend my day looking over a kid's shoulder as they play Rita Rabbit or My First Pet Shop. But Papa Dave did, because he loved his grandchildren. He didn't care what it was that we did. He would probably make dirt sandwiches with us, and honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, he probably did at some point. But he didn't care. He never thought about himself or what he wanted to do. He was completely selfless. Hanging out with me or my brother, no matter what we did, it was never tedious. It was never work or babysitting for him, but that's how much he loved us. His love and kindness will live on in all of us for many years to come. Thank you.
Okay, who's next? We've had the family time. Certainly there's somebody out here.
Got a customer.
I am one of the very blessed group that got to help Dave meet his goal of staying at home until he passed away. And while that is a great achievement, we were also given a ton from him. He allowed us an experience that we don't always get to see in healthcare. In healthcare, it's not a requirement for us to come to these things, but it is the person, and there's quite a few of us here that kind of shows how much Dave affected all of us with his care and his love and his just himself and his humor. He just really impacted each of us every day that we got to spend with him. It was such a blessing and definitely an experience that we will take forever and keep in our hearts. He had been one of the funniest people that I have known. Kind of as we aged, our memory starts to slip, and in the end, I'd say, "All right, I'm going to see you on Sunday," and he'd say, "That's 5 days. Are you trying to get out of work?" And I said, "I'm not kidding. I would never dare. I'll be back here. I promise. I'll see you on Sunday." So even kind of as we got closer, he was so smart and just on top of things. It was amazing to watch, and the amount of love that he had for his family, every single one of them. He never forgot to remind us to say, "Hey, don't tell me to tell Robin," or "I gotta call Brian," or "I need to check in with so-and-so." And sometimes, I don't want to admit it, but a lot of times he would keep us on track, even though we were supposed to keep him on track. Sometimes I'm like, "Yeah, you're right." He just so much love and so much care for everyone that was involved in his life. It was amazing to watch, and it was amazing. I'm super blessed and thankful to have been a part of that, part of his journey. And I don't even know how else to express it. It's a lot. I'm not always in the home, but because of the person he was, I didn't want to stop coming. And so thankfully Amy let me continue, and I got to be blessed with that time as well. And we get to wheel him out on his deck because he never finished sitting out in the sun, even with his sun skin, as you would say. He would have us take him out there, and every day he would give you a hug, and he was so thankful, and we don't always see that. There's times that are hard in healthcare, and sometimes you just push through it because it's your job, but with him, he made you want to do it. You wanted to be there for him, and you never wanted to let him down in any way because he never did that for you. He was always supportive. He took the time to get to know each one of us, asking us about our kids and our lives and all those little details that not everybody does. And so we were able to really build kind of a bond and a relationship that will be incredibly, I shouldn't talk for everybody, but I'm sure everybody's incredibly thankful for it. It's just truly amazing the type of person that he is. And then we were also blessed to see the amazing family that he had and how much support and how well you guys all did with him. It was super thankful and just a blessing to watch and see. We don't always see that. So I think he would be thankful that I remind you guys that you were amazing and you were amazing with him. He loved you each so very, very much, and he loved each of all of us very much. There's no denying that, and he was always very opening and sharing that, even with his spunk that we got to see from day to days, and his contagious laughter when he says, "Is that how you clean a kitchen?" You know, I was teasing him, and so it was just a blessing. And I think that everybody that's come across him can say that he was a blessing in your life and that he left some kind of impact. And I know that he definitely left it on all of us, so I just wanted to share that and say thank you. That's awesome.
Okay, so we were also two of the caregivers that were fortunate enough to have just a small snippet of Dave towards the end of his life. And my second day with Dave, I was putting him to bed, and he was like, "Get over here," and he's like, "You need a Reynolds wrap," and he would wrap you up and he would hug you, and it just was, that's just kind of the epitome of who he was. His smile up until the very, very end was just, he would light up a room. I remember his birthday party when we were all there for his birthday party, and I have pictures of him just with the biggest grin on his face because he was just always happy. He was just eternally just that person. He was happy. He also really, there was something very special about my daughter, and he asked her to be his honorary granddaughter when he met her, and it has made a huge impact on her and a huge impact on me, and I really, really miss him, and I miss being able to stop by there and say hi and just see him. And so thank you guys for giving us that piece that we didn't have before we met him. Really appreciate it.
When I first started with Dave, I remember he was having trouble with getting certain foods down and everything. And I was like, "Do you like pie and ice cream?" He's like, "No, I don't like pie and ice cream." And so I bought a triple berry pie from Super One, like $6, and he loved it. It was the most amazing thing. He looked forward to it every week. He would tell the girls, "On Friday, I'm having Cassie's pie and ice cream."
That was his dinner.
And dessert. There was one night, I think a couple weeks before he passed away, he had dinner, he had pie and ice cream before I got there, and he was taking a snooze when I got there, and I woke him up and I was like, "Do you want to get up and do something?" He's like, "I think I'll have seconds, pie and ice cream." And I'm like, "You got it." Also, another time right before he passed away, he was taking a really long nap, and we were like, "It's getting kind of late, maybe we should get him up, see if he wants to go to bed." And so he wakes up and he opens his eyes, he's looking at me and he goes, "I'm not really sure what I want to do right now, I gotta think about it." So I'm like, "Okay, whatever you want to do, Dave." And his eyes perked up and he goes, "Whatever you want to do."
Yes, that is, yeah, he was a big flirt. He loved that he had an entire house of women that took care of him 24 hours a day, so.
Like Kelly said, his Reynolds wraps were something we looked forward to every night.
Yeah.
They were the best, tightest hugs, and he'd give you a kiss on the cheek.
Yeah,
It was amazing.
and he always used to tell us, and right up until the very end, how much he loved us.
Yeah.
And how much he was so thankful and glad that we were there with him, and we loved him very much too.
It was pretty amazing. You guys were lucky.
You guys are awesome.
What a great testimony of who Dave was when you have the caregivers come to your celebration service and share. That's pleasing. And you know, as I was sitting here and Robin talked about food and stuff, just one little thing I'll say is, Brian and I, when we were kids, we loved cheeseburgers and fish. Dave would get up in the morning before he'd go to school
One, check the legal connection and the settings of the source device. To restore shoulder, select.
But,
Thomas, he's got no
he would make us cheeseburgers and fried fish. So that's the true love of a father there. When you have your favorite meal at the start of the day. Anybody else have any thoughts they'd love to share? All right.
Wow, there is a lot of you. You're sitting right there. My name's Bianca. I worked with Dave for about a year and a half. And when I first started with him, I was not sure what to expect. Because I started in like a residential facility. And so going to in-home care, it is completely different. Because you are working with one person all the time, and you really cultivate a relationship with who you're working with. Well, sometimes when you work with people, their family does not participate, and being able to have Robin and Allison and Brian and Austin and even Barney come visit, it is really special to see that, and I've made great friends with you guys, and I'm so thankful for that. And being able to do that just shows how heavily influenced our relationships were from Dave, because he really wanted us to all hang out, and he wanted to see us all hanging out together and conversing, and you know, he would invite the caregivers to participate in conversation, and then you guys would be like, oh, I'll hang out with you guys too while you're here. And so it was like a big family that we all got to hang out and get to know each other. So, but that's just one of the most special things that I think I've ever gotten to do. And as a testament to the happy birthday calling and leaving a voicemail, I did receive my fair share of voicemails from Dave, and they will forever stay on my phone because he was so special.
All righty. Come on up. Good to see you.
So I'm Dave Fredericks, and like Brian in 1974, our parents packed us up from California and moved to Hope. My dad was born in Hope, so Brian was my first friend that I met. So we lived, I don't know, a quarter mile, half a mile away. So we spent 22 days, I think, camping at Sam Hall Park before Dave sold us our house right up the road. So, man, you guys all hit all that. But the speed thing, I was involved in that a lot with this guy. And then, of course, me and Brian followed suit. So the boat they talked about, which is actually still there on the shore of the house, that flat bottom. You said 4.5 horse? Well, me and Brian upped it. I used to take the motor off Dad's boat, and we put almost a 10 horse on the back of that thing. That was sketchy. But as we got older, you know, we did a lot of, you know, like everybody said, dumb things. And Brian got that speed for boats. My dad had a fast boat, jet boat, that kind of gave Brian a good bug being in that thing. And like you guys all said, we knew how to drive before you got near driver's ed. But as we got older, you know, in high school, like you guys said, Dave was such a supporter. And, you know, we're kids, we want stuff, and, you know, our parents were pretty, you know, they were work ethic people, that, you know, you had to work for stuff. And things just weren't handed to you. And Dave gave a bunch of us an opportunity to have a job. In Thompson Falls, I believe, we were clearing land for one of Dave's partners or whatever. I don't really remember all that. But a bunch of us, he kind of made Brian the boss, which was kind of weird, but we were the same age, and the ones of us that were old enough got to run a little chainsaw. But he gave us jobs, and that was so cool, because we're just teenagers. We got money. You know, and then it was water skiing and boat, whatever, and you know, there was just, you know, and you could always go across the street to the office, right across the street from the high school, and just talk, have stuff on your mind, you know, and just, he'd tell you what he thought, or, you know, what we should do or shouldn't do, it didn't matter. But he was always a good ear, and he, you know, he just always gave us opportunities. And so, and then being at the house, I mean, that's, oh gosh, I could go on and on about the cabin, but that's, if those walls could talk. But anyway, yeah, he was just like everybody said. He just really, really supported all of us, and he will be us.
I have to add to that, because this is so funny. So, I'm Devin Fredericks, I'm Dane's sister, and my first job, I went around town, went around the houses and everything, and I got to Dave's house, and I says, I will clean your house for $1 an hour. I was little. I was like, what, 12, 13? And he goes, okay. So, must have been a time you guys were gone, because I go in, and you know, I did it to someone else's house, and they were nice, and I did the best I could, you know. But Dave had a list of everything he wanted me to do. And I thought, okay, all right. So he gave me the opportunity of job ethic, but I then learned it's not worth it for 3 hours for $1 an hour. And that was the last time I actually did it. So Dave taught me, okay, when I get in life and I have my own business, I think I really need to research and become better. But I just wanted to love Dave, and he always made me giggle all the time, but he was just a great individual.
Yeah, those are awesome stories. Skip ahead here. You know, speaking of his office across the street, he had that sign out in front. And my job after school a lot of the times was to change that sign. And for a lot of years, we would, he'd have a house he would highlight or whatever, some land, and I'd go out there and I'd change it. But the last one I ever did for him, and we put that up there, and he said it was the most successful one ever, and he's gonna keep it. And it was free list of properties. Some of you that have been around Clark Fork for a while will remember that sign that said free list of properties. And it was up there for years, I think, until he closed the office. So it was pretty awesome. But we're gonna go ahead, if there's no more, and we're gonna go ahead and close this. At the end here, there is a thing that I want to share with you in closing. And it's wrapping it up. I want to share the lyrics of a song that was done by a group called The Birds and many others. It was taken from the book of Ecclesiastes. It's known as There's a Season, or Turn, Turn, Turn. And it says a time for everything. And it starts, for everything there's a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and we're moving on to a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek, and a time to lose. A time to sleep, and a time to cast away. A time to tear, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time of war, and a time of peace. Dave has passed through all the seasons of his life here on earth. He has passed on to eternity to be with his Heavenly Father because of personal conversations I had with him later. He had faith in Jesus. I truly think Dave is rejoicing at this moment, free from pain and infirmities. Please don't mourn for him. For as Ecclesiastes speaks, it is a season for us to laugh, dance, and embrace. And Dave kind of was an example of all those things. He did like to dance. Usually took a few of these to get him really going. But he loved to dance. He loved to embrace. And so with that, we're going to close. And let's go ahead and close in prayer. Father, we just thank you for this time that we've had together as family and friends to remember the gift of Dave that you gave us, that you gave each one of us, Lord. And each is here because in some way he impacted their lives. I know there are many that aren't here that he's impacted in one way or another but just couldn't make it. We just ask that you would bless each person as they leave. Lord, we just ask that you'll give us a little time of fellowship here to talk and remember. And we just want to, again, just thank you so much for each one of our lives. In the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen. Okay, I know the family has set up some light refreshments over here. There are bathrooms down the hall, around the corner, if you need to use the facilities. But with that, on behalf of the family, I thank you all for coming.